Hello,
Hello.
everyone.
Hi.
We're back. We're back.
Yes.
This
We're
video is going to be a
uh
mixed bag, we think. We've just been talking about it. We were originally going to do Divine Feminine video, but as the months gone on, I've started to realize that the imbalance in that, in this, especially in the spiritual community, where it's
yeah.
all about the divine feminine, and a comment came through very similar to this from a male watcher, and it was along the lines of it's always about the divine feminine, it's always about women taking their power, but what about the divine masculine? And it's actually a fair point because
Yeah.
we've got both within us. And the way that we're going to heal and awaken is by nurturing both aspects of us.
Yeah. And I think both aspects of them are within all of us.
Mm,
No?
mm.
I mean, all of us have divine feminine and masculine within us. So I feel like even if there is this big conversation going on about divine feminine rising, and it's like, it's almost making it sound like, women are gonna rise and men are not gonna be, there's no
Yeah,
place for them
yeah,
in the world
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
And that's just like flipping things over, no? It's kind of like a switch between the old ways, how things,
Mm,
you know, used to be. And I think that's unhealthy, you know?
mm, mm.
It's not fair to just completely do a role reversal. And I don't think that's healing. I
No,
don't think it's
it's
healing.
it's another extreme, isn't it? Because, like you said, we've just come from that old patriarchy where women were suppressed in some areas,
Yeah.
in some situations. Whereas if it was the other way, just because it's the rise in divine feminine doesn't make it right at the cost
No.
of the other sex. Um, and I think as well, one of the things that I think many people fail to understand is if you just totally focus on your feminine, you're not going to go anywhere because you
Yeah.
need your masculine to actually produce. Don't mean
Yeah.
to
I
say
mean,
it.
to
You
get
do
things
anyway.
done.
Well, actually, yes, you do because if you just said, to produce a baby, you need both aspects.
Yeah.
Um, so for example, the divine feminine will get the idea. I want to paint, I want to use these colors, these paints, these brushes. I want to watch these art vlogs and I want to go out and paint. It's the masculine that comes in and goes, right, let's go out and paint then. Let's go and buy the paints. Let's go
Yeah.
and get to the art shop. Let's start painting. When you just
Yeah.
focus on this feminine energy, you go nowhere.
Yeah.
You can actually
And I
become
think this might be a
ungrounded.
little bit controversial,
Yeah.
but if you look at women who are very action oriented, I'm going to
Mm.
get this done. I'm going to do this. That's very divine masculine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their divine masculine is very strong. It's not
Mm.
a woman who is, if you look at these, um, cases where there's women who are like we are the best, and we we are now, everything is going to be on our side, but that's not divine feminine. Divine
Yeah.
feminine is love.
Mm.
I
Mm.
feel,
Mm.
it's about stepping into that energy of loving yourself and loving all of those around
Mm.
you,
Mm.
coming from a heart-centered place. I mean, I feel like the heart chakra is very divine feminine.
Mm.
What do you think? What would you, if you had to define divine feminine, what would you say divine feminine is?
What would I say it is? Flow, creation,
Mm,
birth. Birth of anything. It doesn't need to be a baby. It can be birth of jobs,
yeah,
creating, crafting, all of that. Um, self-care,
yeah,
nourishing,
yeah,
intuition,
yeah,
sensitivity, but not the oversensitivity that we're seeing at the minute where it's don't agree with me or I'm going to blast you. But
yeah,
sensitivity to the elements, the earth, the sky, the stars, the moon, the
yeah,
water, the seas, the rivers, um, being able to be comfortable with being with men and women, I think, as well, feminine.
mm,
Because
yeah,
I think when you're able to be comfortable in it, you don't feel threatened by men. You don't feel
yeah,
threatened by other women. There's so many women now feel threatened by women. Even mothers, in some cases, can feel
yeah,
threatened by their daughters and try to
yeah,
suppress them and knock them down. And a clear sign that she's not in her feminine.
yeah. I also think, and this is something I've been thinking about, and this can be very controversial also, but I think the suppression of the divine feminine has mostly happened by women, not by men. and this can be really controversial, but it's m- a man cannot do anything
Mm.
to a woman unless other women allow him to.
Oh, yes. I have
Yeah.
just been rebirthed in a video.
So, I know this is controversial, but it's, every man has a mother, a wife, a daughter, and not, one configuration or the other of one of them. And if all of them were like, that is unacceptable, you cannot do that, the species
Mm,
would end.
mm, mm, mm,
Women, I think, fundamentally, I think this has come from women not being in their divine feminine and being a
mm,
bit more in their shadow
mm,
of that energy, in some cases of being competitive with each other,
mm,
not
mm,
nurturing each other and loving each other,
mm,
and you know try to build each other up, because a lot of women have slowly been in competition with each other.
mm, yeah.
It's led to this destruction of women themselves.
Mm,
It's allowed men to do this, even if some men probably took advantage
mm,
of
mm,
that
mm,
weakness that was already there, which,
yeah.
and that's not all men, it's just maybe a select group. And that's created resentment. But I think it's really important for us to look within, because half of the reason why we are in the position that we're in
Mm,
is because we put ourselves there.
mm, mm, mm,
I mean, if you look
definitely.
at in history, sorry to interrupt you, but like
No, it's
Queen
fine.
Victoria, you know,
Yeah.
she was like a passionate, you look at her story, she was passionate. She loved, her husband and romance and this and that. He died. And then she's like, that's it. Women have to wear the strictest corsets. They have to suck everything in, and, they have to be in pain, and they can't do this. And it's kind of like a repression of the same
Mm,
energy.
mm,
And that
mm,
came from a woman,
mm. They
which is
can be
something we
shocking.
don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, it's fine. No, I think that's a brave thing to say because, you know, a lot of people know my background. I came from a predominantly female working environment institution,
Yeah.
and the amount of women that allowed women to be abused in that institution, that encouraged it, that isolated, that gaslit, the amount of women in
Yeah.
power. I once had a meeting with somebody of influence in that building, and she was firmly in her masculine, and she destroyed me in that meeting. And
Mm.
it was like, oh my God. So, mums that have encouraged it, you put up
Yeah.
and you shut up. Whatever he does, um, yeah, yeah, I really do believe that.
And that's not fair. I mean, I don't think that's being in your divine feminine,
Mm,
put up with this and be quiet. That's
mm,
not
mm.
right.
No,
You know,
no.
it's not divine feminine. That's like a
Mm,
shadow side of the divine feminine
mm,
overrided with the divine masculine being like, yeah, let's put this into action. It's the shadow side of this jealousy, of this competitiveness. It's not a love heart-centered place.
mm, mm. I mean, like if you
So
like when I used to do the more controversial videos, the, the
yeah,
the the predominant toxic comments that would come through, the predominant number of them would be female.
yeah,
They'd be female,
yeah,
and they would be savage, like literally for your throat, savage. And even the spiritual community, well, I actually refuse to call it spiritual community, tarot community, the
mm,
savage attacks on other readers, other
yeah,
women, famous women that are out there at the minute is beyond sick. It's beastly. It's not even
yeah.
animalistic, it's beastly.
Uh,
And it's really toxic, really toxic. Um,
where do you think that comes from?
Jealousy, insecurity, fear, their own wounding, so because they're suppressed,
Yeah,
because they will not step into their own divine feminine and divine masculine, false programming,
yeah,
mental health issues,
mm,
um, coming away from source, coming away from community, um,
yeah,
seeing your fellow women as a threat,
yeah,
um, seeing just because she owns more than you, or her husband's richer than you, or she has £1 million corporation that she's better than you. This inferiority complex. You see it all the time. When you go out and you dress up, side eye, the amount of women that will side eye you,
yeah,
and you're just like, oh my God. And men just don't give a shit. They may look
yeah,
at you because do you know what I mean? I'm a
yeah,
bit
yeah,
cop. But the
yeah.
amount of women that It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
I've actually
Um,
found that if you come to somebody with a problem, in my experience, and sometimes a man will be more empathetic than you than a woman, even in the work
mm,
environment, you
mm,
know,
mm,
even in a family situation, a woman will be like, no, you gotta, we have to uphold these standards of, we put up with everything and you have cannot show weakness, and
mm,
a man will be like, oh, really? And
mm,
then if you say that to the man, then the other women in your community are kind of like, why did you do that?
mm.
Why are you going against us in a way? So it's like, it's a systemic repression to some extent, you know?
Yeah.
If you look at a woman who's, liberated and feels free and is, happy in her body, happy in
Mm,
her presence, feels the amount of women who will go after her is, off the charts. Most of the
mm,
time,
mm.
as you were saying before, it
Yeah.
is a lot of the time women who go
Mm,
after other
mm,
women.
mm. Definitely.
And I think how do you think that can be healed? What do you think
Ooh,
we can do?
how do I feel that that can be healed? I think women have to wake up.
Yeah,
We have to wake up and they have to stop being so threatened by everything and everyone and women and stepping into their own truth and their own community, not
uh,
sovereignty, but community.
yeah,
And some really uncomfortable conversations with ourselves.
yeah,
That it's, oh, we can all have it. We can all see somebody that's slimmer than us, or their hair's thicker than ours, or they've got more
yeah,
subscribers, or whatever. We can all be guilty of it. But to actually, I think it's about, it doesn't matter. It's about loving you. Doesn't
yeah,
matter what you look like, your size, what your hair's like, color of your skin, nationality. It's about loving you. When you love you, when you are kind to you, it's a given you're going to be kind to the outside world.
yeah.
And you're
I
not
agree.
going to feel threatened by other women.
Yeah. I've actually done a practice recently, and I was guided to do this by my spirit guides. They were very much like, okay, now from today till another 2, 3 days, my spirit guides are very like poof, in your face.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, don't react anything. Observe. Really observe. Observe yourself and observe others. Look at them. So, really just and keep on asking yourself why. But don't do it in a judgmental kind of way. Just observe, you know? And it's made so many things come up for me. Like so many reasons why, certain behaviors that I have are
Mm,
influencing me in a certain way. And almost, like as to give an example, because this is going to be a complicated and otherwise, I have a hard time asking for help.
mm,
This whole thing of community. To
mm.
have a community, you need to open yourself up to help,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
need to be like, I need help. And um, I had to listen to people around me, my husband also saying to me, listen, you really do need to
Mm,
acknowledge that you need help, right? You can't do it all on your own, even if you want to. We have this thing of like, we are, as a woman, you have to be able to do everything, You have
yeah,
to be able to
yeah,
complete every role,
definitely.
clean your house, take care of your kids, be a good wife, work, this, that,
Mm,
and you can't do it. Not
mm,
really,
mm,
not
mm,
well, you just end up being really burnt out and very
mm,
frustrated. You can't thrive. You can't be in your feminine
mm.
that way. You're just kind of in survival mode. And I feel like a lot of people are just trying to survive.
Yeah, that could be why a lot of women are struggling because they're in pain. Ultimately, they're
Yeah.
in pain. They're in pain with getting older. There's a thing at the minute as well, and I saw it on YouTube and I was like, whoa. I actually felt uncomfortable watching it, which is my issue. And it was somebody that was perimenopausal saying that she's struggling with her daughters going out into the world as teenagers.
Yeah.
She's going through all the symptoms of that. And her daughters are young, smooth-skinned, luscious hair, bright, vivid eyes. And I was like, ooh, if that isn't dealt with and alchemized, that's going to become a poison, is that?
Yeah.
This exhaustion, and this
Yeah.
is embittering women, exhausted and not making peace with age. Social media plays its role as well.
Yeah. But Isn't it funny though that we are the creators of social media?
Mm,
We
mm,
are the consumers.
mm.
Social media will only give us what we consume. If we
Yeah.
stop consuming these videos or allowing certain people who have these almost toxic kind of
Mm,
ideals of beauty, then it can't, if nobody watches them and
mm,
people just watch more wholesome things,
mm,
then
mm.
there's no platform for them,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
The minute that they're devouring it,
Yeah, it's just, I think, a reflection of what's going on in the inside. And I think this age of Aquarius is really like
oh
pushing it
yeah,
in our faces. It's like, here,
yeah,
here it is,
definitely.
This is exactly what is going on your inside.
Mm,
And there's no escaping it. It's hard.
mm,
It's
mm.
really
It is,
hard.
it is hard, isn't it? It is hard, and I think as well. Um, I think when present day current women that are here now, there is such a burden because they're having to unravel the past. They're having to deal with their own vulnerabilities and their own anger at not having the nurturing, not having the systems in place, whilst
Yeah,
at the same time having this new energy where they've also got to hold space for the next generation.
yeah,
What I'd say, because there's a lot of that online at the minute as well, healing the ancestors, generational healing. And so many, it's predominantly women, are going out and trying to heal the ancestors. They're trying to heal their
yeah,
mums. They're trying to heal granny. They're trying to
yeah,
go home to their mums that are incredibly narcissistic in some cases and give all these insights, and they're just getting blasted and they're becoming exhausted. Stop it. Stop
yeah,
it. Stop it. Accept they are who they are and focus on you and your healing and what
yeah,
comes from you further. And also know that you are also not responsible for how your own children perceive you. If you're
yeah,
going to try and stop trying to heal mummy and daddy and granny and Aunt Sally and don't, it will organically happen once you start to step into your power.
yeah. Do you think it's a distraction, though?
Mm,
A distraction from your own pain,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's easier to heal somebody else
Oh,
than
it
to heal
really is.
yourself.
It is. It is. You see it a lot. You'll see it a lot. And I think as well when we see things on the public stage that we're triggered with, and people get obsessed by it or them,
Yeah,
it's because it's mirroring something back to them.
yeah. I think, I think this divine feminine is all about
Mm,
just look at yourself.
mm,
It's all about going within. All
mm,
of it, the world that we live in, the planet, our relationship with other people,
mm,
ourselves. It's all about what is happening within us.
mm,
And not everybody. I mean, but the collective energy, I think, because I do think some people have put in a lot of work, for
mm,
themselves, and they're really, and I think there's been a real push, I think, with certain
mm,
people to make these
mm,
changes, to
mm,
look at themselves, do a lot of shadow work, do a lot
mm,
of
mm.
these deep dives. And I do think those people need to be commended also, because there are some people who are very, I mean, if I look at your channel also, a lot of the comments are so wonderful, you
Oh
know?
yeah, yeah. That's because there's no raw stuff on there anymore.
You know,
Bring
you
that
have
back
like
and
a
watch it
beautiful
turn into
community.
a shit show.
Sorry?
If I brought that back, which I'm not planning to, it got nasty. It got really nasty. It was scary
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
But yeah, now where the channel is now, the comments are amazing. The comments are beautiful. You have the odd bot that comes in, but that's fine. But
yeah,
yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely, isn't it?
yeah. It's hard. How would you, if somebody came to you and said, Claire, really, I need some advice on integrating myself more in the divine feminine, opening my heart and, being in more in this heart-centered place, what would you say?
Do what makes you happy.
Yeah,
Even that can be putting pressure on you.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Even that, I need to step into my divine feminine can be putting pressure on you. I just
yeah,
want you to go to somewhere to sit today. I want you to sit down and I just want you to breathe. And I want you to give yourself time. And I want you to be
yeah,
kind to yourself. And I want you to nourish yourself. Have that, salt bath or oils in the bath or give yourself a facial. Give yourself a cup of tea or coffee or cacao. Give yourself some time. Stop judging yourself. Stop beating yourself up. See the beauty in you. See the
Mm.
divinity in you. Stop trying to be the divine feminine, the divine masculine. I
Yeah.
don't think our ancestors, ancient ancestors, would have been into, I don't think they'd have known those words. They would have just connected without realizing it.
Yeah. Do
I
you,
think, and I'd say, I wouldn't say step into community, but I know that stop seeing yourself separate from other women or other men as well.
yeah.
So if you do go out into a community of women and you're sat there and they start getting catty, or you're in with a community of blokes and they start going a bit, obscene or whatever. I'm not saying that men do that.
Yeah.
Don't sit there judging it and think, well, I'm separate. Just see it's just an experience around you.
Yeah. I guess finding humor also is nice, no? Maybe,
Oh yeah,
find just laugh at yourself a
yeah,
little bit. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that's healthy. I think
yeah.
it's necessary. It's something that,
Mm,
it's almost like we've forgotten.
mm,
Like just, you know, yes, this thing, and I've seen that you do that a lot yourself also. In your videos, you're
mm.
like, let me add a little bit of humor to this,
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think sometimes you have to, and it's not about laughing at the subject matter. It is,
Mm,
a very big and important thing, but it's
mm,
also like if you just sit in the heaviness all the time, it
mm.
just drags you down.
Oh yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like, put a little bit of humor, dance in your, bedroom or something, or, you know, find those little
Yeah.
moments of,
Yeah.
just silliness. And I think that can help too,
Mm,
um, in this whole trajectory of,
mm.
getting into yeah, more of this feminine. Actually, when I was preparing for this video, because I knew it was a divine feminine video, I was like, I'm late. But then I'm like, it's okay. I'm never like that. I'm just like, it has to be right. It's kind
Mm,
of like,
mm,
it's okay. I
mm,
think that's a lot of divine feminine also. It's kind of like, just have a laugh,
mm,
make it a little bit light.
mm,
It's okay if you're just a little bit late. It's not about stressing. It's
mm,
exactly what you're saying. Go outside, sit in the garden. And if that's hard for you and you're struggling, just have a laugh at yourself,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah. And I think as well, in relation to men, as stop fearing men. Not all men are bad, not all women are bad. If you've had an
Yeah.
experience or one or two or three or four, five, six, seven with a bad woman or a bad man, or what you perceive as bad woman, bad man, doesn't mean to say all people of that sex are bad. There's a lot online at the minute, and it needs to be flagged of
Mhm.
fearing men. A lot of women creators are doing it, where they're doing videos where, I was just gonna go for a walk outside, and I realized I found myself thinking about all the safe spaces I'd have to walk because we as women can't walk out safely. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you
Yeah.
doing putting that content out there?
Yeah.
Um,
I found a Native American quote actually, and I really liked it. And I'm paraphrasing it because it's not exactly yeah, because I don't have it in front of me,
mm,
but it was saying that the divine masculine in some ways gives the divine feminine the safety to express itself.
yeah.
You know, it's almost as if you need that action, you need that other person. And this doesn't mean that it has to be a man and a woman,
Mm,
because it depends
mm,
also. There's, same-sex relationships,
mm, mm,
and there's one person who takes more of one energy, another one who takes more of another energy, and or they adapt depending on. So
mm,
that's not, it's not,
mm,
I mean, I'm not trying to say it's about, a specific gender of any
mm,
kind,
mm,
but it's about I think there's something that we're not crediting men, that a lot of them, they do their best
mm,
to create a safe environment. And a lot of women are like, that's repressive. But I think it's important to allow that safety to give you the freedom to express yourself.
mm,
And if that doesn't give you the freedom to express yourself, then I think there's an issue. But I do think that there is a lot to be respected, especially on men's side, because they
mm,
do um, put that out there. They put in a
mm,
lot of work and a lot of effort
mm.
to create that safety, you know?
Yeah, Definitely. And a lot of men have been caught up in the false programming of what a man should be. A man shouldn't
Yeah,
cry. A man shouldn't do. A man should be brawn. A man should be this. He should look a certain way. He should drive a certain car, have a certain house, a certain amount of kids. And there's a lot of men groups now starting up where a lot of men are starting to understand community and
yeah,
understand the power of coming together. And I hope in the future that rather than it just being women's groups and men's groups, it can be mixed. Because at the
yeah.
minute, I think somehow, possibly right now, it needs to be separate in some areas. Because I
Mm,
think there's stuff that needs to be resolved before they start coming together properly.
yeah,
Um, but the pressure that women can put on men and the pressure that men can put on women,
yeah,
not in all respects, but and it's going to take years, decades to unravel and learn about.
yeah. Yeah. I think it's important because I think for women, communication has always been a really big way of
Mm,
communicating.
mm,
I think um, a lot of men are not as comfortable in expressing themselves
yeah,
verbally. Like
yeah.
they're very much more, and I think maybe it is what has been, traditionally imposed on them. But I think there's also an element of, okay, this is where women are at and this is where men are at. Don't
Mm-hmm.
expect them to just be something completely different from one day to the next.
Yeah, yeah.
Give them grace too, right? Give them the love and grace that you would wish on yourself
Mm,
too,
mm,
because a man, if he's trying his best and he's doing something about it, then, that's him trying. And
mm,
if you're trying your best and you're doing something about it,
mm,
that's you trying. I
mm,
think that's a big
mm,
issue that a lot of
mm.
people have in relationships now. Also, it's like, this person is not fulfilling every single one of my needs, but they're not supposed to,
They're
you
not.
know?
Nobody can. Nobody can. You're meant to fulfill your needs, and somewhere on the line, you meet certain people that can. Certain aspects that it's not. Again, it's like a codependency. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing as well, I think is playing a big part in this is a few years ago, we're out walking, and I came across this group of teenage lads, and I was like, why are they dressed up as World War One soldiers? And I looked at them and I blinked, and I was like, oh no, they're not. And it was a
Yeah.
group of teenage lads, and they weren't dressed as World War One soldiers. They just appeared. And I
Yeah.
looked at them, and they were all like that. They must have only been like 15, 16, 17. And I thought, you know what this is? This is a generation of lads that are coming back that died in the World War One, World War Two, that possibly died rabbit in the headlights energy, that died
Mm.
from a system that bulked them up and said, get out to war and fight, leave your families, get out there and fight for something that, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they died and they're coming back, and it's almost like, good, all this brawn, you can see it in them, this soldier-like mentality. And
Yeah.
that needs to be alchemized. But also, as well, I think we underestimate the damage that the wars did, World War One and World War Two. Even now we're in the noughties, or beyond that, it's still affecting people because of granddads and great granddads and great great granddads that came
Yeah.
back and they were damaged. And people don't want to look at that. They want to see granddad as a warrior that came back or he died in glory. But there
Yeah.
was a lot of years having to build back. So men and women were concentrating on building back and not stepping into their femininity and masculinity. And in some cases, having to get used to each other again. If you think about if your husband went away for 4 or 5 years and he came back, I don't care what anyone says, he's a stranger when he comes back.
Yeah.
And then you've got children, you've got a life that you've built away from him. And
Yeah.
you've also had to go into your fight or flight, when's the next bomb coming down? So I think, because I know a lot of clients coming in, there's issues with a certain generation of people at the minute.
Yeah.
Older generation, I'm not saying that all the older generation, but there's a damage there, there's a wound there. And I think that that's
Yeah.
playing a big impact on that
I
in a
think
in a
also,
past life
like,
way
it's
and in a
hard.
generational trauma
I
way as well.
think, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
But it just crossed my mind so that I don't lose my train of thought. Even before then,
Mm,
before the First World War,
mm,
we come from lines and generations
mm,
of a lot of fighting. I mean, if you look at the history of any
mm,
country, there's a
mm,
lot of conflict. And we come
mm,
from generations and generations of hunger, war, difficulty,
Disease.
social pressures. And I think we need to also, back to what you were saying with people struggling with their parents and grandparents, realize that, our parents and grandparents came from generations that dismantled a lot of those things.
Mm,
And there
mm,
is a little bit of credit to be given to them.
mm,
I mean, if you
mm,
look at the flower children, and if you look
mm,
at,
mm,
all of those movements of like, I'm free, I'm liberated, we are also um, having, there's a lot of benefits that we've received, and they
mm,
kind of paved the way a little
mm,
bit for
mm,
us
mm,
to change things, because
mm,
I think things had gone too far even in their generation.
mm,
And I
mm,
think each generation, we're trying to do our part. So I think it's almost to be graceful to them, because I think we're dismantling. I mean, I think this has been going on for a
mm,
long
mm,
time. And it's a lot of generations of healing,
mm,
I mean, if you look really far back, if I, when I talk to my family members, are from Italy, and they used to tell me, yeah, dowry systems, there
mm.
was something similar, not
Oh
exact,
yeah, yeah.
but like that's not something that we think about anymore. But
Mm,
it's, if you look far back enough in each country, there are these old practices that fortunately, we don't we don't have to dabble with or
mm,
tackle anymore. But our family, our parents, our grandparents all come from these generations that if I take my grandmother, my grandmother has these stories of well, had she passed away,
mm,
of that her family had to uproot themselves. They were in Rome, and they were going to be shipped to
mm, mm,
gone to be shipped to Africa,
mm,
because it was the time where they were like, because the situation in Italy was really bad at that time
mm,
during the Second World War. There was a lot of difficulty also for a lot of Italians. And
mm, mm, mm.
I feel like people can be a little bit unempathetic, because they're like, oh yes, because you picked this leader, right? But isn't there a little bit of a reflection of that now?
Yeah,
you know
yeah. It's repeating patterns, isn't it?
yeah, and it's kind of like, are we going to be a little bit more graceful with each
Mm,
other this
mm,
time? Are we going to be a little kinder? Because
mm,
it doesn't matter who you look at, everybody has a history, everybody has a reason
mm,
for why they are who they are,
mm,
why they've, if I look at, my grandmother or my father or, my mother, they have become what they have because to some extent they've done the best that they could with the
mm,
situation that they had,
mm,
and they've tried their best to give us the best, right? And I think and the best they knew how also,
mm,
I think because maybe they also had some issues and difficulties in their lives. So it's a lot about how do you put that love in yourself
mm,
to love all of these other people,
mm, mm,
that
mm.
are,
And
and
it's
it's
hard,
really
isn't it?
tough.
It's hard. It can be hard. And it can be hard when there's been so much damage caused. And
Yeah.
somebody says, you've got to love your ancestors and you've got to, and I think that's something that's going to be having to be worked on. Not love them from an idealistic point of view, but to free yourself from the chains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's how it is. That's all we can really do. No, we can
Mm,
only free
mm,
ourselves from the chains. And then you cannot, you know, you cannot, there's this saying, you cannot change anybody. You have to, all you can do is heal yourself. And that's the best,
yeah.
and just finding that joy and that happiness within, and you'll see it ripple out and change things outside of you, but maybe it won't also. And
Mm,
that's
mm,
okay.
mm,
Being okay with the fact that, you're doing the work for
mm,
you. And
mm,
if it doesn't, and that's why a lot of what you say in your video is also about, finding community, going
mm,
away from social media, because social media is this collective energy of
mm,
everybody. But maybe it's just about you right now, Just take
mm,
that time for you to heal you. I
mm,
think it's
mm,
also just giving yourself that grace,
mm.
is really, I think it'll help a lot. I
Yeah.
think it'll help a lot.
And I
What
think
do
as
you think?
well, by doing that, the rest follows. I think when
Yeah.
humans give themselves some grace, some leeway, they take we're always looking for somebody else to take the pressure off of us, but everything starts with us.
Yeah.
If when we meet person after person that exploits us or abuses us,
Yeah.
what in me attract, and that can be a huge trigger. But
Yeah.
how do you expect anybody else to love you when you don't love you?
Yeah.
When you don't respect you, when you don't nourish you, when you can't hold space for yourself. It's like
Yeah.
another thing in the community, the spiritual community is I need someone to hold space for me. Why?
Yeah.
Can you not
You
hold
have those.
space for yourself?
Exactly.
Why do
Exactly.
you need somebody to? It's good when somebody can, when they can give you a moment of their time or a session or whatever, but we cannot keep on needing other people to hold space for us.
Yeah.
And I think that possibly comes from a parent wound because space possibly wasn't held in
Yeah.
some respects. So I need somebody to hold space for me when actually we should be holding space for yourself. An example of that, Claire. So you're feeling rough, you're feeling tearful, you're feeling ill. You pick up the phone and you say, I'm not coming in today, or I'm
Yeah.
coming to cancel that plan. Or can you just give me 30 minutes while I go and decompress?
Yeah.
Or in an argument with someone, a conflict, to be in that conflict and be able to hold space for yourself, not expecting somebody to come in and stick up for you, or do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's when you're in your most powerful element. When you
Yeah.
don't need somebody to hold space for you. When
Yeah.
you're able to sit with your feelings and emotions and experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, and do it and experience it without needing permission. Because that's another thing I need. People feel they need on some subconscious level that they need permission to feel something.
Yeah.
It's bad to feel this way. Do you know, I'm so angry at what that person's done. How dare they? You know, that's a bad feeling. And it gets suppressed,
Yeah.
it becomes dis-ease within the body. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull out right now. And it's taking a long time
Yeah.
to hold
And
space for
I think
yourself.
to add to that, then afterwards, the other person, when they don't understand you,
Mm,
that's okay too.
mm, mm, mm.
I mean, they don't need to understand you. They
No.
don't need to understand that you need space.
Yeah.
And that, to give yourself that grace and then to go back to that person and be like, I know you don't understand,
Mm, mm,
but please respect me by
mm,
giving me the space,
mm,
and I
mm,
will respect you by giving you yours.
mm, mm.
It's not about, and everybody is like, okay, and one thing about social media is like you get these little groups of people and everybody agrees with each other, right? And you
Yeah.
keep validating each other, and that's fine. But then when you go in a group and you have somebody else who thinks drastically differently from you,
Mm,
and you say, hey, listen, please give me my space to be and to express myself, and they give you that
mm,
space. I mean,
mm,
if they're
mm,
graceful, they will.
mm.
And I think most people, most people are kind at heart. They will give you a
Yeah.
little bit of space, but they may not understand you, and that's okay. They don't
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think that's also that part of validation. You don't need that other person to understand or validate how you're feeling.
No.
Give the other person the grace of
Mm,
also feeling how they're feeling,
mm,
and coexist in the same space by respecting each other.
mm,
I think, that's the element. I mean, it's also what it is that you're saying. You're saying it, in a different, I think we were saying it in similar ways or different
mm,
ways,
mm,
but it's if somebody comes and, if you are feeling okay with yourself, if
mm,
somebody says something offensive to you and they're trying to be spiteful, then it's important to set boundaries and say, listen,
mm,
I don't accept that.
mm,
But if
mm,
somebody's being respectful but just doesn't agree,
mm,
then it's important to give them their space too.
mm, mm,
Because that's the only way you can
mm.
meet in the middle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing about community also. Community requires compromise.
Yeah, of course it does. Everyone's going to come in there with a different backstory, different path walked, different shadow aspects. And
Yeah.
it's been being able to sit in that room and be comfortable with the uncomfortable at times and not
Yeah.
try to judge it or understand it or why are they acting like that.
Yeah. And
There's
I
a
think
lot of
that's why we moved away.
hypersensitivity. Yeah.
Sorry. I think that's why we moved away from community too,
Mm,
because it's hard. It's hard to deal with somebody who is like, I completely disagree with you.
mm,
And it's easier to be like, I'm just going to go with somebody who does, you
yeah.
know?
My
I'm just going to
tribe.
remove.
My
Yeah,
tribe. They're your
Yeah.
tribe because they go, yes, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right.
Yeah.
Safe space.
Yeah. And that's the thing, even when you look at celebrities,
Mm,
the channelings I think that you've done also, they're surrounded by these yes men,
mm,
but then they're so alone.
Mm,
And community and tribe is not lack of no conflict, no
mm,
friction.
mm,
It's some people who respect you,
mm.
you know? I think even when you go with your guides, sometimes they're like, listen, no,
Oh
what you,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
have you experienced that too?
yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah,
think as well, I think we're scared of being honest with each other. I think
yeah,
that the people that we do need in our lives are the one that are honest and said, do you think you should be doing that? Or just take a breather. Don't go, do you know what I mean by that?
yeah,
We've got,
yeah,
people, think of the world stage where they're surrounded by yes men and women that are terrified of them, that won't say, and they're letting them
yeah.
get away with whatever.
And then
Um,
they become destructive of themselves.
mm,
Because I and I think the important part is finding the difference between people who say these things from a
mm,
heart-centered place.
mm, mm,
People who say these things, like, no, I don't agree with you, not because they want to because they love you and they
mm,
care about you.
mm,
And
mm,
I feel like, they're seeing that, like they don't agree and they see maybe there's an issue or something that
mm,
might come up, or they just don't agree with you and they're giving you a different perspective. There are also,
mm,
certain times where there's somebody who is, as we were saying, and that's, I think, the hard part. I mean, what we're trying to navigate, how do you navigate when you are not sure with yourself, when you have somebody who is saying no to you,
mm,
then it kind of makes you doubt yourself because you're not sure in yourself. So here's a big one. How would you suggest to somebody who comes with you to you about, listen, I am trying to navigate myself. I'm unsure of myself. And I want to find my tribe. I want to find, I want to be able to communicate with people who are different from
mm,
me. But if they're really honest with themselves, they're like, it makes me feel insecure about myself.
mm.
What advice would you give for that?
Just experience it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to experience something. Sometimes you've got to go through the ring of fire. I don't mean like
Yeah.
when I
Just
take
lean
away
into
the
the
burning bum.
discomfort.
You've got to go experience it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to experience self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Sometimes you've got to experience it because that's where you're going to
Yeah.
get your lessons from. Just
Yeah.
experience it, observe it,
Yeah.
experience it, dive into it.
Yeah. It's like the fear, no? And that's the thing. I think people see
Mm,
fear and it's like, oh, I can't. I'm scared. I feel this, but it's kind of like breathe,
mm,
lean in. You can always step out, right?
mm,
Just
mm,
feeling empowered enough that you can always get yourself out of this
mm,
situation. I
mm,
mean, for the most part, unless it's like a very dire situation, but for the most part, we're very lucky in this day and age that we can
mm,
remove ourselves, I think,
mm,
from certain
mm.
situations. No? Would
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I also think as well, in all of this, is no matter what path you're on, what you're trying to achieve is to be compassionate, to be kind
yeah,
to yourself first, and then let that, non-judgment. And that can be so hard because we are battling with judgment because we are a very judgy species.
yeah,
And there's going to be more and more stuff comes up in relation to that.
yeah,
I remember, obviously, years ago, doing the job I did, sometimes we'd have to deal with prisoners that came in, and the amount of people that didn't want to nurse the prisoners. I'm not bullshitting here.
really.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could tell you some stories. Um, and they wouldn't nurse the prisoners. They wouldn't hold space or anything. And I actually used to enjoy it
Yeah,
because it was actually testing my resilience when these people came in with handcuffs on, legs cuffed as well in some cases, chained up to, depending on what they'd done and what cat they were. Um,
yeah,
and I'd sit with them and I'd laugh with them and I'd talk to them about everyday things. And if they needed toothpaste because they had braces on or whatever, because I'm a dental nurse, then I'd give
yeah,
them it. Have you got this? Have you got your whatever? And people couldn't understand that because why would you do that? I remember one particular story. Somebody had come in after a fight and he'd attacked somebody
mm,
brutally. And it was brutal facial injuries. And there was a line of assistants, let's just say that. And they were like, we're not going in there. He's attacked someone this weekend. And
mm,
the surgeon was saying, well, I need somebody to come in and assist. I don't care what he's done this weekend. And they wouldn't
yeah,
do it. And it was like, well, I'll do it. And I went in and he'd done
yeah,
some crazy stuff that weekend. But it was fine. Are you all right? Hand on the shoulder, making sure he was comfortable. And that's great, isn't it? That's great. And that's when you can get yourself to that point. Who would you rather be? The group of women, because it was women again, stood there going, I'm not going in there, I'm not going in there. Or the one that
Yeah.
went in there and it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah.
So it's like when we channel the ones like that have done crazy stuff, the amount of people that'll subscribers that'll drop off because they think it's disgusting. But the amount of
No.
subscribers that'll come in and say that was amazing. That
Yeah.
is and that's great, isn't it? And when we can get to that, that's how you bring healing.
Yeah. Because I think we need to have those
Mm,
honest conversations because I think a lot of
mm,
people are starting to be
mm,
ready because we need community. Um, yeah, again, I mean, this morning, I went through a little bit of comments and stuff, and um, again, there was this Native American,
mm.
quote where they said, "We did not have prisons. We didn't have prisons.
Yeah,
There's
do you
no
know,
such thing."
interesting. I was thinking this week, and what was it? I'll read a Jeffrey Archer book that's based on prisons and obviously crime, and it's a police
Yeah,
procedural. And I was thinking about the whole prison thing, and do we need prisons? That's going to be a trigger, but actually,
yeah. It's kind of like you need to. I think if we come to this place of heart-centeredness, I think it will really help because I think people who are in prisons, to some extent, I mean, there may be some exceptions, I'm not
mm,
sure, but I think a lot of them just need somebody who cares for them,
mm, mm.
you know?
We've got to be realistic. Some people in those places have done some crazy stuff, but rather than calling them prisons, imagine if we said, right, you're going away to retreat.
Yeah,
You're going
yeah,
into a building that's been cleansed energetically. You're going to be looked after people that are into their feminine and their masculine, their divine feminine, their divine masculine.
yeah,
You're going to be given nutritious food because they're fed shit. So your
yeah,
fruits, your vegetables, all your meat, all that, your pulses, beans, all of that wholesome, balanced diet because we know what diet and all that kind of stuff does to the
yeah,
brain. You're going to
yeah,
be given therapy. We're going to bring in psychologists, therapists. We're going to bring in shamans. We're going to bring in Reiki
yeah,
masters. We're going to bring in meditation circles. We're going to get in some cacao as well. Imagine that we're going to get in artists that can come in and not do cells, but rooms. Anyone
yeah,
watching me now that works in prison can be like, shut up, Claire. But it's
yeah.
true. Watch it. You know, it's
Yeah, no, and
proven. It's
I
proven.
was agreeing with you. I
Imagine
was going to
that.
think,
Yeah.
why don't they bring okay, out no, this is also going to be a little bit triggering, but why don't they bring spiritual practitioners,
Mm,
not limited to specific religions, because that's polarizing in itself.
yeah. Yeah.
Why don't they bring somebody who is, okay, let's clear out the energy of this place.
Mm,
Let's find somebody who cares about your soul,
mm, mm,
but not even just in, okay, this is a traditional, this is, like if you look at, traditional religions in
mm,
themselves, if you go too much and deep into the dogma of it, it's very restrictive, right?
mm,
Why don't we just give our souls and whatever it is that means for each one of us space?
mm,
I
mm,
think that would be huge, just
mm,
opening
mm,
up your heart. And even in prisons, just having somebody who's like, I don't mind where you come from, what you've done, anything. I
mm,
don't mind your religion per se. I'm only here for your spiritual
mm,
well-being
mm, mm,
and whatever they choose for that to be. That's why, that's what is beautiful about, shamans and Reiki
mm,
masters. It's all about nature.
mm, mm. Building the retreats in nature.
Yeah.
No, a lot of there's a prison in Leeds called Army Prison, and that's on an old hanging place where they used to hang. It's like old Victorian building, the part of it, the centre of it,
Yeah.
and then it's the new building, the new block built
Yeah.
onto it, and it's like the hangings that have happened there. And when we drive past it, when we go back to Leeds, you can feel the energy coming. There's houses there, whoosh, running down into the houses. I'm like, get that knocked down. Get
Yeah.
that knocked down. Get other places. I know that we have an issue.
Yeah.
But, also as well going into homes and families, especially in council estates where women are struggling, men are struggling, they've not been taught about nutrition, they've not been taught about identifying abuse, they've not been taught how to nurture, they've not been taught how to
Yeah.
work out finances. Um, this stuff is already happening, I need to say. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
there
there's some
is.
There's some good people in these areas that are trying. But
Yeah.
imagine changing that.
Yeah. And I think that's where it comes down to, it's about, they're talking a lot about, rises in crime
Mm,
everywhere,
mm, mm,
knife crime, this crime, that crime, all kinds of different kinds of shootings in the US.
mm, mm,
There's a lot going on. What if there is, more of this presence of these people? Why aren't these people being encouraged? These people who
mm,
are there
mm,
and who are going there, they're not being given the resources.
mm,
They're not being given
mm,
the finances.
mm,
They are, and strategically, nutritious food is more expensive
mm,
than unnutritious food.
mm.
So these people, the average person is like, how can I, spend this much on these more nutritious foods when I'm struggling to pay my electricity bill,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Oh, do you know what I've just thought? Right, oh, this is going to be triggering. Rather than food banks, what about community kitchens where
Yeah,
people go? It's like my mum and dad used to go to what were they called lunch clubs for like the over summit or others, over 60s or whatever. Well,
yeah,
lunch clubs where it's older people coming together at a certain day and they have
yeah,
a meal together and they have a cal or whatever, which is a chat is a cal, right?
yeah,
And then imagine that in communities where rather than food banks,
yeah,
or rather these community hubs where people
yeah,
can go in for a meal. There's a breakfast, there's a lunch, there's a tea, and there's paid people there and volunteers that are working, that are serving,
yeah.
and it's nutritious meal. And we get the rich to dig in their pockets and do some real work rather than doing it just for photo opportunities. Anyway, imagine
Yeah, putting the
imagine
power
that.
back in the community.
Yeah.
It's the people of the community that, they're the
Mm,
ones who I mean, similarly, my grandmother used to go to a dance,
mm, mm,
every weekend, and they used to eat
yeah.
together and they used to dance together, and there was local musicians, and they were, it was very,
Yeah.
it was just they had a hall and they did everything else, and that hall was provided by the community. I feel like that's, but I do think in the UK there are a lot of those things. I'm not sure, but I think so. No,
Mm,
there's a lot
mm,
available, I feel,
mm.
or no?
Oh, I'm feeling right buzzy with this chat and these community hubs and stuff. Imagine it. Just imagine that woman that wakes up that morning or man or whatever, they're struggling, they're because people are, and being able to go into a hub where there's
Yeah,
community to eat a breakfast, to eat a
yeah,
meal, to have I'm
yeah,
not talking about them becoming dependent on it, but
yeah,
just that it's there.
yeah.
Because weren't our ancient ancestors looking there because the boss is there, as in the picture of him, not Gary. Like there's a picture of my guide there. Would they have not have eaten like this back in the day?
Yeah.
Communal eating.
Yeah, and everybody sits on the table.
Mm,
It's not like, okay, you have these community hubs and then you start creating this stigma,
mm,
of like only certain people can go here. No, everybody can
yeah,
come.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody's invited on the table.
Mm.
Like I think you had a video with you mentioned something like that, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah,
right?
was it we've said something similar. It was a recent one about the election in America, the inauguration, where it's about everyone comes to the table. It doesn't matter who he is, what he or she is. It's
Yeah,
about the
something.
when the world can all sit at that table without going, you've done this, you've done that, you've done this. That's when the
Yeah.
world changes.
Yeah, even the what you've mentioned, I think in the previous video about those, community books, that you love reading, and having, these
Yeah.
community places to have books for everybody,
Mm,
these communities for, where you can go and have a meal, these community places where you can go and you can get whatever
mm,
nurtures you,
mm, mm, mm,
whatever that may be, and
mm,
open for everybody.
mm,
I think
mm,
that's not for people to have this stigma, oh no, can I
mm,
go? Can I,
mm,
what are my neighbors going to think? Like that would be really, I think that would help a lot. I
mm.
do think that would help a lot.
And I
Yeah.
think, it's one of the things that I think is coming up and it will come up. And I think there'll be resistance to it. There'll be resistance.
Yeah.
But I think it's because they do say the new earth of what people believe of the new earth is going to be more community based, where we're going to be required to look at what gifts we bring to the community and coming back in. Because that's what our ancestors, even our recent ancestors,
Yeah.
would have had the street as a support network.
Yeah.
Um, People
Yeah.
looking out for each other's property, and last night somebody came down your drive with a, that. Stop taking
Yeah.
at people, Claire. But you know what I mean? Or there
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
strange man in the street, and that's actually we kind of need that back.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
Kids playing
the
outside.
other day, listen to this. We
Yeah.
left our garage door wide open for 24 hours and didn't realize it. And we've got
Yeah.
people straight opposite, and it's like that is freaky that somebody can leave their garage door open and a neighbour not say your door's open.
Yeah.
Do you know that scares me? Not scares me, but do you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah. I think, and this is where, I feel like the divine feminine has a place.
Mm,
Women are very communicative in general.
mm,
They love talking,
mm,
either be it about gossip or anything, whatever it is,
yeah.
not
Mm,
all of them, but I think that's where it can stem from.
mm,
I think, I think you've mentioned this also in a video. It's the mothers and the women of the community
mm,
which are going to push this forward and are not going to accept it anymore.
mm,
I think
mm,
it needs to come there because I think at some point things have gotten to this place because of women to some
mm,
extent.
mm.
And I don't mean that in a way to blame in
No,
any
no.
way, but I feel like we can very much unify and create, a lot of unity and it maybe and I think it's the divine feminine actually because I don't think it is
Mm,
women. There are some
mm,
men who are very community based and
mm,
they're
mm,
like they take care of their kids and everything, so
mm, mm,
I feel like it can come a lot from men too, but I just feel like it just comes from this whole new earth. This whole thing
mm,
is
mm, mm,
us taking that step,
mm,
us, each one of us in our own way. And that's how we build it. Because I feel like there is such a disconnect from this new earth kind of energy.
mm.
New earth is coming. I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like there's, there's a little bit of like, how do you do that? How
Mm,
do you make it like in a practical way of what can in like we were saying before, each person almost has to be like, okay, I'm going to heal myself,
mm,
and then everybody else, it's okay. I'm going to smile to this
mm,
person across
mm,
the street, and if they don't smile back, it's
mm,
okay.
mm, mm.
you know
You might
or
not
I'm
see
going to
it.
say hello.
Yeah.
The amount of looks that people give you when you're like, hi,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with you? But it's kind of like, it's okay. When
Mm,
we traveled to the UK recently, actually, and we found that, we were having some difficulty and
mm,
somebody was really nice and they're like, let me help you, you know?
mm,
And she was a lady, and I think she worked in the bus, like in a bus service. We were in
mm,
the bus station, and she's like, "Let me help you." And she was so nice, So I
mm,
feel like it's already happening,
mm,
you know.
mm.
Just somebody who's like, "Let me give you a hand with that,"
Yeah.
If somebody helps you with your grocery bags, not to be like, oh my God, they're going to steal my groceries, maybe they're
Yeah.
actually there to help you, just to allow that, and I feel like it just comes from us, each one
Mm,
of us,
mm,
doing those little things step by step.
mm.
What do you, would you,
Definitely,
yeah.
definitely. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, what can I do? Because it's all right sitting on a video being like that, Claire. I do it a lot. But actually, I'm thinking, what can I do? And it's like doing like voluntary work, going out and
Mm.
doing we call it soup kitchen stuff in the UK, where they
Yeah.
go out and they feed homeless. So they make, my brother did it the other week, where they go out into city centres and with meals and they serve meals and this for the homeless.
Mm.
Christmas Day, I mean, we know the whole thing about Christmas is on the spotlight of actually what is
Yeah.
Christmas really about, rather than
Yeah.
going, well, that's it now, I've lost Christmas, because I used to believe it was this, but I've realised it wasn't this, it's actually this instead. Is to
Mm.
think, what can we do Christmas Day? Let's go out and do some volunteer work. Let's go into these. I'm going to Google once I've done this and had a decompress ways we can volunteer, going into
Yeah.
prisons if needs be, going into soup kitchens and
Yeah. But I also feel like I mean, if that's available and that's
mm,
great, but I also feel like just even the smallest thing of just smiling at
mm,
somebody,
mm,
to be like, to smile,
mm,
and to be like, hello, how are you? Just to
mm,
some random
mm,
person, give somebody a second of your time. If you can't do those
mm,
bigger things, I feel like that also makes a big difference,
yeah,
just to have somebody who makes you feel seen. I'm not for us to
yeah,
rely on that, but
mm,
just to be kind.
mm,
I
mm,
feel, like that does um change.
mm,
I mean, as far as, whatever it is that anybody can do.
mm,
I feel like, what did they say? A drop of water will make a tsunami if many drops of water come. I
Oh
think that's
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
saying, you know?
yeah.
But it's yeah, I think it's just like those little drops. And I think to be graceful with ourselves, just to do those little drops a little bit
Mm,
at a time,
mm, mm,
you know? Because I feel like even for people who are a little bit more introverted, which
mm.
I can say I am quite,
Yeah, yeah. It's hard, isn't
um,
it?
it's hard, you know, if you just go out and you're like, okay, now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do all of these things, you know, it can be overwhelming. So it's kind of like it's okay. You don't have to do all of that all at
Mm,
once. Just do something small that you can do.
mm.
I mean, for me, it's like I've made it a point to go to the grocery store in
Oh yeah,
person,
yeah.
you
I'm
know?
looking for online shopping. I need to work on that. It's
And just smile at the counter and your person at the counter and just say hello. And that's like my, okay, this is when I can, I'm gonna do that. And I'm just, you know, because I think it
mm,
can be overwhelming, you know,
mm,
to be like,
mm.
I'm gonna go to a soup kitchen and, you know, like I feel like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, but it's
I
no,
don't
it's
know.
true, it's true, and I can even because I'm thinking about other things. You know, you can get your depending on your relationship with your street and whatnot. You could
Yeah,
say, or if you've got a group of friends, and say,
yeah,
you know what, let's not just meet up for drinks and sob
yeah,
stories. Let's meet up for a coffee morning,
yeah,
cake, coffee and cake, and we'll do it at each other's houses, or
yeah,
nibbles and soft drinks. Keep booze
yeah,
out of it because booze just clouds everything, and
yeah,
it can make people have false personalities. And
yeah,
once a month where we rotate around each other's houses, it can just be an hour. You can go to
yeah,
your street and say, let's do it in each other's, or the women in your street, or the blokes in your street.
yeah.
Um, or
Just
if
have a
you've got,
cup of
yeah,
tea, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
even as simply as just a cup of tea, you know, like
Mm,
that's, I think, you know, if you're not, because now it's like, you know, people don't want to eat sugar and they're
mm,
caring for their diet and everything. So I feel
yeah,
like that's important too. But
mm,
just having a cup of tea, a cup
mm,
of
mm,
cacao or something, I
yeah,
think that would be so nice,
yeah.
you know? Just,
Definitely, definitely. And
yeah,
we'll see more of this. We will see more of it, but there's all kinds of things we can do. Also, as well, look in your own life. The next time you're invited to a wedding, a birthday party, a hen do, or a family Christmas, just try to stop thinking of, I'm different to them and they're different to me. They are. You are different. We have different coloured eyes. We have different skin. We have different hair.
yeah,
Of course, different size boobs, all of it. That's
yeah,
fine. It's normal. Try and go in there and just think we are all one. And it doesn't matter
yeah,
if I'm sat next to a woman in the group that owns millions or thousands, and I'm sat next to someone there that has never worked in a life and never intends to, etc. That's fine. It doesn't
yeah,
matter anymore. It doesn't matter if that person has fought addiction all their life. Get in that room and enjoy it and be part of it. Stop
yeah,
looking at different people and thinking and weighing them
yeah,
up and just enjoy it.
yeah. I think also for women to stop feeling so powerless.
Mm, mm, mm,
No, I mean, a lot of women are like, I'm scared. I'm scared of going out. I'm scared of doing this. I don't want
mm,
something to happen to me.
mm,
I think that's a big thing too.
mm,
And to know and realize that if you are genuinely in a
mm,
position where that can happen to you, then obviously, you know,
mm,
take precautions. But to realize also that we are a lot more powerful
mm,
than what we feel that we
mm.
are. You know, we can go out and do certain
Mm,
things, you
mm,
know. We can, you know, express ourselves
mm,
freely. And even if there is something, or, you know, there, if you go, if, for example, what you're saying in a family function, you feel like I'm different from everybody. If I
mm,
act the way that I am, then I'm going to receive criticism,
mm,
which is
mm,
often what does happen in
mm,
family situations. It's about, I think, also being like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to have my cup of tea while
mm.
everybody goes crazy, you
Yeah.
know? And that's okay. You can have your cup of tea and, you know, and you can be yourself. And it's about giving um, yourself that grace of being like, it's okay. I think I'm saying
Mm,
the same thing you're
mm,
saying, to be
mm,
honest.
mm, mm.
You
No,
know?
it's
Yeah. So it's, yeah. It, I feel like what would you say to somebody who feels disempowered about themselves, their energy, who they are? They feel powerless. They feel like they can't do these things.
ooh, what do you say? The thing is, you can say everything in the world, you can throw every book in the world at them, every therapist in the world at them, but until you're willing to see your worth,
Yeah.
you have to, a person has to see it for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know, you'll know this as well, obviously with children. You can say to children, don't touch that radiator, it's hot. Don't touch
Yeah.
that radiator. And sometimes they'll listen to you, but then there'll be that time they need to touch that radiator to understand it really is hot.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just have to experience a feeling until they
Yeah.
see it, until they get that moment that is unique and personal to them, and they go, wait a minute,
Yeah.
call it a download, call it an upgrade, call it a light bulb moment, aha moment, or
Yeah.
somebody does something that just goes, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And it's like, that's the moment.
Mm.
Because sometimes people feel worthless for a reason. Maybe they've had a lot of things happen to them. Maybe they've been abused. Maybe they
Yeah.
have gone out and done some stupid stuff in their youth or whatever, and they do
Yeah.
feel worthless. And I think sometimes it's actually important to say, I actually feel worthless
Yeah.
because it's a feel that we've got to feel.
Yeah.
But
How much do you think it is part of our human experience being here on Earth and having to learn these lessons? And how much do you think choice plays a part in
it's
it?
changing. It's changing.
Yeah.
It's changing at a fast rate now. You know, back in the day, we had a karmic wheel that we were on, and we were having
Yeah.
to do a lot of stuff, and we had no choice really in it.
Yeah.
Whereas these new energies that we're going into, the karma is actually disappearing.
Yeah.
It's just we're still on that. We're choosing to still be on that karmic wheel.
Yeah.
As we energies switch and change, more choices coming in. Which is why when a lot of astrologers are saying this, and they're more science based than I am, that
Yeah.
the days of predictions, am I going to meet someone? It's going. Do you want to
Yeah.
meet someone? Yeah, I do. I'm desperate to meet someone. Get out and date then. Get out into the
Yeah.
community. Get into online dating or whatever it is. Stop waiting to meet him or her.
Yeah.
That we're getting into more and
Exactly.
more choice. Um, where we're getting free of the shackles. It's just there's still aspects of us, and there's still humans out there that are still on that choosing to be in there,
Yeah.
and that's fine if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, yeah. I think, it just sums it up. You said it perfectly. It's about choice. No?
Yeah, that's interesting as well because I've just heard as well. Sometimes, 11:11, interesting.
Yeah.
There is this thing where you are going to come down and you're going to experience an event in your life, but you have a choice in how you deal with that event.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've always got a
Exactly.
choice, and you've got a choice throughout it. So even if you go into it in a dense reaction to it,
Yeah.
you can still change it. And it's okay if you've gone in and you've gone actually in at a 5D aspect and you've been like positive, positive, positive. And it's not toxic positivity, that's something else.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have a slump as well. It's okay for this human experience.
Yeah. How much do you feel that this element of, do you think going forwards, this element of 5D, 3D, 4D, however, whichever
Mm.
place that we're at, do you feel like it's going to go in a phase where everybody is going to align more? Or do you think it's going to be everybody's going to be somewhere in the spectrum and we just accept each other?
I think we accept each other. I think the whole 3D,
Mhm.
5D, 4D type thing is great. And I think it exists to some level, but I think it's also getting weaponized
Yeah.
as I'm
Yeah.
5D all the time, and you're only that's such a 3D reaction. I think the
Yeah.
healthy thing is we come together as one and stop.
Yeah.
Again, it's about how do I step into my divine feminine? That can be really overwhelming, especially when
Yeah.
you go online and you see some of the stuff out there that's just not appropriate. It's just
Yeah.
for some people at certain stages, it's not appropriate. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not appropriate to say, that's 3D, that's 4D, that's it can if you want to integrate that yourself and you feel that's a safe space for yourself
Mm.
to do it. But I think ultimately it's just chilling out and
Yeah.
coming back to fun, laughter, joy, compassion, flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you
Yeah.
have a bad day and sometimes you may tell somebody to F off and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
is. It is. It's fine for, yeah, it is. I mean, it's so simple
Mm, mm,
in some ways, but it's so hard also in another way because I feel like um,
mm,
how simple it is requires us to listen.
mm,
No, I mean, um, and that's where I feel like this divine feminine
mm,
energy is. This, I think this movement towards this divine feminine energy, I don't personally, and I may be wrong, but
mm.
I feel like it's not just about women going into powers of position,
No.
position of power. It's not just about women taking on these stronger
Mm,
roles,
mm,
because I feel like then a lot of those women are going to move into their divine masculine energy to be able to get to those positions, right?
mm,
I think it's just about this rise of divine feminine is really about coming into a space with compassion and love for yourself, for this
mm,
earth, and for the people around you. And however that plays out for you, and however what ups and downs
mm,
happen, that's why I sometimes, this dichotomy of masculine, feminine,
mm,
this, you're in this category, and I feel like
mm,
it's so boxed in, like you need to be
mm, mm,
XYZ to
mm.
fit here, you need to be XYZ to
Yeah,
fit there, right? But it's about, why don't you just love
yeah,
everything, and that might sound, like, what are you talking about, like you can't just go around, loving
oh, yeah,
everything. But
yeah.
I feel like that's where we're going.
Mm,
What do
yeah,
you feel?
yeah. No, it's true. It's true as well. Maybe one day we'll look back and go, divine feminine, masculine. What were we on about? I think it's coming back to oneness, isn't it? If you think, well, what's divine feminine? Well, you should be at home baking bread, stitching socks, dancing under the
Yeah,
moon with your boobs out, sleeping on a bed of crystals. For a lot of women, that's just not acceptable. They just can't. It's like,
yeah,
what? What if the woman is actually a really good earner? She's got a capacity to go out and earn, and it's actually the father that can actually
yeah,
really. It's horses for courses, isn't it?
yeah. And I feel like also I think I saw this really interesting Instagram account of this lady. I think she's in the US, and I think she teaches belly dancing, and
Mm,
she tries to make it accessible to everybody.
mm,
And she says, I use belly dancing because the women in my family line have done this for generations. This is
mm,
our way of creating community, and this is my way of releasing trauma. I'm not somebody who
mm,
talks about my
mm,
feelings, or I'm somebody who dances.
mm,
And that makes me feel good.
mm,
And I feel like this whole movement is like, that's okay,
mm,
right? If
mm,
you like dancing, that's okay. If you like talking, that's okay.
mm,
If
mm,
you like you know, creating things, and creating artworks and
mm,
stitching,
mm,
going back to
mm,
crafting,
mm,
that's okay. It's really important, I feel like, for us to not make the mistakes of our ancestors.
mm,
A sense of, if we go and we say, if we're moving into a world of divine feminine, and that's a very, this energy
mm,
is very strong, it doesn't mean that you need to fulfill all of these criterias.
mm,
It doesn't mean you need to like
mm, mm,
crystals,
mm,
or,
mm,
it
mm.
doesn't mean you need to like dancing. It doesn't mean you need to like
No.
baking. It doesn't matter.
Mm,
It's just about being heart-centered. And
mm,
I feel like that's a really important thing to
mm,
highlight. I mean, at
mm,
least for me, because I do
mm,
feel like it gets so confusing.
mm, mm,
No? And that's why it's a beautiful thing to have, specific people, on social media who do show that.
mm,
That's why, a lot of your work is really, really fascinating, and I love it, because it just goes into the depth of, all the everything, good, bad, and how
mm,
to make it human,
mm, mm,
which is
mm.
not, I think that's where I'm having a difficulty sometimes with the overarching spiritual community. It's like, you must fit in this.
Oh. It's like I've said, I follow very rarely now people on the spiritual community
Yeah.
because it's just crazy. It's crazy. There's some good corners of it. There's some good parts of it, and there's bits you can take and bits you can leave. But I actually feel sorry for people on their awakening path coming into it because it's a minefield.
Yeah.
You've got readers going, this person is a light worker, they are amazing. You'll have another reader going, they are the child of the demon. And it's like, same person. What do we do
Yeah.
with that? And it's just like crazy out there.
Yeah.
Come to yourself. Get into community, but also sense of self as well.
Yeah.
And again, it's about allowing it all to play out in the way that it needs to play out.
Yeah.
It's
Just being
it's
kind, I think.
yeah.
But it's a lot about what you're saying also. In so many of your videos, you say putting people on pedestals,
Mm,
right?
mm,
If you put somebody on pedestals, you automatically don't make them part of your community or circle.
mm,
There's like
mm,
they are here and
mm,
we are here. No,
mm,
we're all here
mm,
in the
mm,
same
mm,
playing field. You know, all of us have our flaws, all of us
mm,
have
mm,
our good sides, all of us have strengths, all of us have weaknesses, and that's okay. It's about
mm,
loving everybody, I think, for who they are. I mean, and if you don't love them,
mm.
because you don't have to,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, I'm okay with your existence on this plane, you know?
Mm,
Um, and one thing I loved was recently I heard somebody say, and I don't remember where it is, but we all have a divine right to take up our space on this planet,
mm,
you know? And that's, I think, maybe that's something that maybe somebody
mm,
might need to hear a little bit
mm,
of.
mm,
Your place on this earth is yours, and you
mm,
have full rights to take it,
mm, mm,
you
mm,
know? And you don't have to explain to anybody really
mm.
why you are taking up space. You're
Yeah,
taking up space
yeah.
because for one reason or another, you're here on earth, right? And that's okay. No, I mean, yeah,
Mm, mm. Yeah,
I think
it's
that's,
it's
yeah,
it's it's been it's an interesting chat, this, isn't it?
yeah, it's gone all over the place. So
But it's
many
good
things.
that this is what it should be like, not, where it's so structured and we're only going to talk about this. This is community,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's about all different ideas and listening to each other, and then it leads to something else, which leads to something else.
yeah,
And I think this is the type of, I feel, is a healthy conversation. If we'd have just been on whimsy and the femininity, we've gone into prisons, we've gone into poverty, we've gone
yeah,
into abuse, we've gone into be realistic. I
yeah,
remember when we channeled, was it Reggie Cray was a big criminal in East End of London.
mm,
And it's like, how do you get this type of work into areas of the world where they're in poverty, where they're living in violence. And you
yeah,
start talking about, divine feminine, divine. We need to be realistic. And I
yeah,
think that's why so many people get put off with all of this stuff, because it can seem so unconnected and so unreachable.
yeah,
To stay in alignment, to stay in the moment, in the present. And if you're sat
yeah,
there and many humans can't, we've got all
yeah.
kinds of things going on.
Yeah. And
Can't
also, I mean, if you
comparison.
look at what's happening in the world right now,
Mm,
people who are in war-torn areas, which is
mm,
our reality, I
mm.
mean, they're there. You go to them and you say, hey, listen, you need to come from a heart-centered place. They're going to be like, what are you talking
I
about?
know, I know.
You know? And it's kind of like, you can't just be like, oh, just, fairy dust and
Mm,
everything,
mm,
everything is
mm,
beautiful. They're like, we're
mm,
starving. I mean,
mm,
everything is not beautiful. We're
mm.
struggling. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's the uh, people around and the external communities, the ones, that's why, before I was saying that the divine masculine energy is there to give the divine feminine the energy to express itself, the safety. That can
Mm,
also just be our
mm,
country being safe.
mm,
That divine masculine can just be also our country being safe and our home feeling safe and our environment feeling safe. And that allows the divine feminine in all of us, men
mm,
and women, to express itself.
mm,
And that's our responsibility.
mm,
It's very much in our hands. We cannot do everything. You cannot
mm.
tell, somebody from these places, hey, listen, it's your responsibility to, make the country peaceful. They're going to be like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's very much of those of us who do have a voice, we can use our hearts to very much be in center, I think,
Mm,
of what
mm,
it is that we value because we are way more powerful than what
mm,
we give ourselves
mm,
credit for.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
we're
yeah.
even more powerful when we come back together.
Yeah.
You're often it. You're
Exactly.
often it, especially women. I've renovated this house all on my own. I've not needed a man or anything. It's like, oh, imagine if you did invite a friend. It doesn't have to be a man, but
Yeah.
imagine if you did invite a friend in to help paint, or, you
Yeah.
know, again, it's such tension, isn't it? It's such,
Yeah. Yeah. You may have had more
mm,
fun. It's about
yeah,
that,
yeah,
having fun, and allowing that, allowing
mm,
yourself to have fun,
mm,
to enjoy these little things, I
mm,
think.
mm,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's
yeah.
it's the journey that we're on now. I
Mm,
think that's where we're
mm.
trying to get to, you know? And I think we really need to be kind to ourselves. If
Yeah,
you do the whole renovation by yourself, it's okay to, it's a lot of work.
God. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
we've had a chat. We'll wrap up.
Yeah.
It'll get too long, and it can put people off.
Yeah. Let's
You
how about we
watching?
just pull a card each to
Yeah,
and close it off. Everything will be fun.
go on then. What deck are you using?
Mm. Yeah. Let's see. You ready?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, I'm still shuffling, please.
Oh, do you want me to go? Well, I'm going to use the Gaia Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno. And the card at the bottom of the deck is, after a little shuffle, evolution, earth changes, climate change, and transformation. What an ending to this video. And
Yeah.
the card at the top of the deck is, you can't make it up, peace,
Yeah.
dissolving unwanted or disturbing thoughts.
That's
It
beautiful.
just sums up this video in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
Transformation and peace. What can I do to transform my life and bring in peace today? It could just be something as simple as cleaning your sock drawer out. It could
Mhm.
just be slowing down, taking the day off. It could be, you know what? The cleaning can wait. Today I'm going to go for a coffee with Barbara next door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sums it up.
Mm,
That's exactly what it is.
yeah.
I got from this is the Mother Mary Oracle by Alana Fairchild, Our Lady of the Abundant Garden.
Yay.
That was at the top. And at the bottom of the deck, there is Our Lady who sends the angels.
Hey, I like that.
Mm.
And I think as well, when you're in an abundance mindset, you don't go into attacking each other because you know
Yeah.
you're enough. You see, abundance, we presume, is money, but it's actually knowing that you're enough.
Yeah.
So you don't feel threatened by somebody else.
Yeah.
And you know that you have enough, so you don't feel threatened by anybody else.
Yeah.
Yay.
And I feel like it's also, I mean, I think the abundant garden is our earth also, right? To
Yeah.
some extent, you know?
Yeah.
And with your cards that the ones that you
Mm,
chose, the Gaia cards, the earth, we're all one to some
mm, mm,
extent.
mm,
And
mm,
we're supported.
mm,
The
mm,
angels are there.
mm. And I think it's a sure sign that we're coming away from the old ruling structures, whether you like it or not. It's
Yeah.
going, we're coming back to more community-based decisions, where a country makes decisions rather than a select few.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Men and women making decisions, divine feminine, divine masculine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some tower moments to come, but we've also
Yeah.
got some amazing things to look forward to.
Yeah. It's like that thing. I think I've heard somebody say with the tower moment, you can choose to jump off the building
Mm,
or you'll just be thrown out. Either way,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
happening, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. We're in, I think for good times though. I feel
Mm,
like it's
mm,
um uh I feel like there's all this thing also that it's like there's these tower moments, but I feel like don't be scared. Just ring somebody up and talk about it with them and maybe you'll
mm,
feel a
mm,
little bit
mm,
better. I feel
mm,
like that
mm.
could help.
Yeah,
Um, all right.
yeah. It's
Uh
let's
is
we're all right. See you later. We're forgetting that we're filming.
yeah.
Right then. Thank you for watching. Again, Brenda's details are all below, her Instagram and her YouTube, so do go over and follow.
Yes.
And
Claire's are also.
like, comment, share, and subscribe on both channels, please.
Thank you, please. Yeah.
Give likes, please, on videos on YouTube. Somebody actually said this on my other channel that you'll get so many watch it, but you only get a few likes. Liking a video helps to get it out.
Yeah.
Stepped into
Yeah.
the masculine there.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.